Hello guys, this is Satyajit Pattnaik and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is an extended version of SQL for data science. If you haven't watched the part 1 of SQL for data science, please go back to my channel and watch it. This video is more of a deep dive where we understand something more than the basics of SQL. Guys, today's topic is going to be the extended version of introduction of SQL for data science. In the last class, we studied about the basic topics, and today we shall be deep diving to some intermediate to advanced topics in the field of SQL for data science. Today's timeline is going to be aggregate functions. We'll be discussing about aggregate functions, ordering, having clause, what is regular expressions, nested queries, and what are views. So let's go back to the previous class and go for a recap. If you want a brief introduction about data science, brief introduction about the basic concepts of SQL, go back to my previous video, which serves as the part 1, and this is going to be the part 2 of the SQL series. Go back, you can understand all these topics in depth. So we covered what is the introduction to data science, what is machine learning, what is SQL, and basics of SQL in my previous videos. We also understood the importance of select, update, insert, and the delete queries. We also understood what are the various types of joins: left join, right join, inner join, outer join. So today's topic, as I said, it's going to be a little bit a deep dive into the field of SQL. We'll try to understand what are the other concepts apart from these queries which we understood. So we'll begin with aggregate functions. So let's try to understand this particular example so that we understand what is the importance of aggregate functions and where are they used. Sometimes we examine and analyze data of varying magnitudes. Hence, we realize the need of grouping similar types of values together and look them at as one bunch, right? So consider a table containing data consisting of the marks scored by students in their 12th board exams. While you would want to know how the students performed in all the subjects put together, it is equally important to see how they performed in each subject. You can even you can even dig in to get further insights if you group the students by state. Hence, it is imperative that you learn the usage of aggregate functions in your queries. So there are various aggregation functions and we will be talking about few of them. And if you want to study more about the other aggregate functions, I'll be sharing you one of the links which you can find in the description below. So let's talk about group by. Group by is nothing but to aggregate values of a column C1 grouped by a certain column C2. So let's try to understand by using a small example of group by. In the previous video, we already created a database. We also created some tables. So I'll be using the same database. So I'm using use test underscore DB so that I can use that particular schema. Select star from EMP info. So this was a table which we had created, right? So now, how about creating, let's say we are trying to understand what is a group by function. So let's try to group by based on state. So we'll try to see state and count star. So what we have done is I'll show you the original table again. So let's say we want the total count of each state. So there are two valid values, Arizona and California. So if we want to get the total count of each state, we'll have to group by based on the state value, right? So what we have done is select state count star. What is count star? Count star basically gives you the count of the records. If you do a normal count star on the entire table, it will tell you how many rows the table has. So the table has 11 rows. Okay. Now count star is used in this particular group by. That means based on this state group by, it will be providing you the count values. So count of Arizona is 10, count of California is 10. Now there are some more aggregate functions such as min, max, etc. etc. So let's try to understand what is min, max, and average. So let's say I have a column called as age, right? So let's say I want to show what is the minimum age uh, in this particular table. So select min of age from employee info. Similarly, max of age will give you the maximum age. If you want to create average, average. Okay. Now, let's say I want to show that particular customer which is having the minimum age. So the minimum age is 22, right? So here we'll have to create another query which is called as nested query, which we will be studying in the next slide, but let me show you. So the question is, let's try to print the details of that employee who is having the minimum age. Can this work where age is equal to minimum age? It will not work because it is telling invalid use of group by function. So what we need to do is we will be, it's called as nested query, query within a query. So select star from enp info where age equals to select min age from enp info. This query will work. Okay. So these are the two employees with age. If you want to create in also, it will work. Okay. Similarly, if you want to show the candidates with maximum age, you can also use this. So this is how your aggregate functions work. There are various other aggregate functions, but these are the mostly used aggregate functions like count, min, max, and average. So count the number of rows, min and max finding the minimum and maximum score, the minimum and maximum values for a particular column. And average, it finds the average. Okay. Now the next topic is going to be ordering. What is ordering? Quite often you would want to display the retrieved records in a particular order. For example, in increasing order or decreasing order, right? There can be two ways to order, right? Increasing or decreasing. So it can be based on any column. For if you want to uh, get the output on increasing order of age, that is possible. If you want to get the output in decreasing order of age, that is possible. If you want to get the output in increasing order of the first name, it's possible. So let's try to see using a small example. Select star from enp info. That's my basic, that's my core table. Let's say I want to order it based by the age. So ascendingly I will order it. So you can see the lowest age is coming as the first record and the highest age is coming as the last record. Similarly, if I do DESC, it will be like this. Now, if I want to order it based on the first name, you can see first it is ordered by ascending order. Similarly, if I want to do it DESC, okay. Now there is one more parameter or one more operator you can call it as, which I haven't mentioned as a separate slide, but it's known as limit. Now in certain scenarios where you want to limit your number of records, where you are dealing with millions and millions of records, you will have to use limit. So limit is basically present in your MySQL. If you are using Oracle SQL, you will have to find the alternatives of limit. You can simply Google it out and you will get it. So as we are using MySQL, let's try to use limit. So limit 3. So that means I should get the top 3 records. See, if I want to do ASC limit 3, so limit basically limits your number of records. In Oracle SQL, you can take help of row num as well. There is an operator called as row num. I don't think so row num works in MySQL. Okay, so this is all about the ordering. Now this is an example. Select first name from employees. Order by first name as AC limit 3. That means the output will show you 3 records in an ascending order of the first name. Okay. Now the next topic is going to be having clause. Now what is having clause? Let's try to understand what is written here. You have already learned how to filter individual values based on a given condition. But how do you do this on a grouped values? Suppose your manager asks you to count all the employees whose salaries are more than the average salary in that particular department. Now, intuitively, you know that two aggregate functions would be used here, namely count and average, right? So you decide to apply the where condition on the average salary of the department. But to your surprise, the query fails. This is exactly what the having clause is for. So the basic difference is that your where clause works on a column value. But if you're aggregating something, if you're using an aggregate function like count, max, min, on top of that, if you want to put some checks, you can take help of your having clause. Okay, so the having clause is typically used when you have to apply a filter condition on an aggregated value. This is because the where clause is applied before aggregation takes place, and thus it is not useful when you want to apply a filter on an aggregated value. So ultimately, when you are using an you are using an having clause, it basically is applied after you get the final output. So let's say select something, something from something, order by something, group by something, having something. That means before having, the entire population is filtered out, then based on the having clause it is further filtered. Okay, so that is the reason having clause is used mostly on the aggregated values. Let's try to understand. mm, okay, let's try to take the same example. I'll just print out the basic table, select star from table name. So let's say I want to, let's say, let's do a sum of the age. Let's do a sum of the age. What is the sum of the age? Sum of age is 390. Now let's do a sum of age on state. So before that, let's see how many states we have. We have 3 states, Arizona and California, right? So our sum of the age came as 390, right? But we are doing sum of the age for state. So we will have to use a group by function, right? Let me divide this query for a better understanding. So first line is select, then from, then comes your group by. So group by state. So let's print it. Okay. So sum of the age is calculated based on each state. Now just assume that I want to display those states whose sum of the age is more than 50. Now if I do a simple query here where sum of age is more than 50, it will not work, right? It will say invalid use of group function, because on an aggregated function you cannot apply it in the where clause. That's the reason this is going to be your output. On top of this output, you can use your having clause, having sum of age greater than 50. Or else if you want to, this will also work. Or else what you can do is you can provide an alias here, sum of age as sum age, and you can use this in your having clause as well. Okay, so sum age state. So this query is basically used for refining those states whose sum of age is more than 50. So this is one of the applications of your having clause. Okay, now let's try to go through this particular exercise. List the keywords below in order of their occurrence in an query. I have already mentioned the answer, but it's better if you just answer yourself first and then look at the answer. So my answer for this question will be, so the question is clear, right? We have to list out the keywords below in order of their occurrence. When you are using your select queries, when you are forming your SQL queries, in what order you should write down the keywords. So definitely the first keyword is going to be select. Select star from table name. Where? So that means my number 3 comes first, select star from. fifth, 5 comes second. From table name where, so where comes fourth, where something, group by, then comes your having clause, then comes your order by, then comes your limit. So this is how it looks like. I'll just write it down. Let's say select star from, I'll not say star from, okay, let's say star from table name where something greater than something. Okay, so select comes first, then comes your from, then comes your where, then comes your group by. After this group by, let's say age or state, then comes your having, let's say here I'm putting it as age, state, and sum of age. Let's say something like that. Having sum of age greater than 50. Then comes your order by. Order by, let's say I'll order by age, DESC. Then comes your limit 3. So this is how your sequence works. First comes your select, then comes your from, then comes your where, then is your group by, then having, then order by, then limit. Just try to remember this and it will definitely help you. Okay. Now the next topic is going to be string functions. String functions and datetime functions will be studying right now. String functions are used to manipulate the string data and make it more understandable for analysis. Now, for an example, if you have Amitabh Bachchan written like this or Amitabh space Bachchan, which one of them is more readable? Obviously, the latter one, right? So let's try to see how many string functions we have. We have more than 50 string functions. So I'll talk about just 5 of them. You can extract some time from your calendar and then look at the various other string functions. You can refer this particular link which I have provided. Okay. So let's try to understand concat, substring, upper, lower, and character length. Now concat is nothing but it concatenates two strings. Substr is nothing but it extracts a substring from a string. So let's say your name is Amitav. If you want to show the first 3 letters, AMI, so you can use substr. Substr, first name, comma 1, comma 3, something like that. We'll see the usage of that. Upper converts a string to uppercase. Lower converts a string to lowercase. If you want to get the length of a particular field, you can use character length. There are many more string functions. You can go through this particular link and understand. So let's try to see how does concat works. So now I have my table enp info. Let me try to concat the first name and the last name. So concat first, last as full name. So now if I do, what it will do is it will concat it directly. So the output will be John Jones. Okay. John Jones, Mary Jones, Eric Edwards. Doesn't look good, right? Because your first name and your last name is concatenated right away, like without any spaces. So you can add this particular string. So I'm adding a space. So now it looks like this. This is how your concat works. Now looking at the next example, substr. So let's say substr of first, let's say I want to print the first 4 characters along with the first name. Okay, this is how your substr works. I want to provide a name, first 4 cars. Okay, so this is how your substr works in MySQL. I think in Oracle SQL you have to use substring. I'm not sure if substring works in MySQL. Let me try. Oh, it works. So substr or substring both can work in MySQL. Next here is your uppercase. So let's try to print upper of first as up. Nice. Upper, lower, And if you want to if you want to use character underscore length, the usage is going to be very easy for us to understand as total cars. So this is how your substring functions work. Okay. Now there are a lot of substring functions. If you want, we can go through this particular link to understand various other substring functions. So you can see there are a lot of functions: insert, instr, lowercase, left. You can see the usage of each one of them. Mostly these are, I mean, I haven't used it in my entire career. I hardly have used substr functions or concat functions or reverse function. Yes, reverse is also used. It's nothing but reverses a string. So if you want to use reverse of first as rev, so it reverses it. John is reversed. Okay. So something like this. So these are some of the various string functions which are present. Okay, let's try to go back to the next topic. The next topic is going to be date and time functions. So again, similarly, we can deal with string, and also when it comes to the date time parameter, date time columns, we can also manipulate the date time columns using the date and time functions. Okay, so used to manipulate the date and time columns. For example, if you want to change the date format or just want to see the exact day or so on. So date format, day, quarter, year, month, and there are a lot of date and time functions which are present. Okay, so let's try to see how it works. In the ENP info, I doubt I have a date column. I don't have a date column. I also have one more database. So let me use that. Okay, I have one more database. So customer, let's see the table name. Okay, so this is the table customer. I have the date columns here. Okay, create date and last update. So let's see what is date diff. Now date diff is nothing but it provides you a difference. If I give date diff of create underscore date last underscore update, and if I'm using a limit function of 1, that means I'm just doing for the first record. Okay, so 14 minus 15 is going to be minus 1. So your output will be minus 1. Okay, if I'm doing the other way around, it will be plus 1. As simple as that. So date diff is nothing but it returns the number of days between the two date values. Now, what is day and quarter? Let's try to see. I'm just doing it on one record just for our better understanding. Let's say I want a day of create date. So it should return 14, right? 14. If I want month, 2. If I want quarter, it will print 1 because it's January, right? So it's February. Okay. It's Feb. So your quarter is 1. Your month is 2, right? And your year is 2006. So these all functions are actually used a lot because whenever whenever we are dealing with advanced SQL queries, there are certain scenarios where we want to do some manipulations, like your new column will be X multiplied with the year minus 1, something like that. There can be some formulas based on the date time columns. There can be scenarios. So definitely all these functions will come into picture when it comes to those kind of scenarios. Okay, so you can definitely go to this particular link which is present here and look at the various date and time functions. Okay, you can simply use this like what I showed you right now, and the usage of it is going to be very easy for you to understand. Okay, now next comes your regex. Regex is nothing but regular expressions. So far you have already known about the wildcards like the like operator. But in cases, wildcards may fall short for some advanced use cases. Regular expressions comes into picture. Okay, regex, also called as regular expressions, is a sequence of characters used to search and locate specific sequences of characters that match a pattern. Okay, so we have already showed the example here. The first example is going to be match the beginning of the name. Okay, now let's say I want to show all the customers. Let's first query on the entire table. I want to select all the customers where the email starts with W. Okay, I can definitely use W, something like this. Sorry, my bad. I have missed out the column. Okay. So this is how it works. Okay. But using regex, how to do it? Regexp. This is how you should do. Okay. So it provides you an output of all the customer names, all the customer details whose email starts with W. This is how your regular expression works. There are some other examples as well, like to find the customers which email address having a Z, V or P. Okay, so what you should do? Z, X and P. So it will provide you all the customers details whose email ID has Z, X, P. Okay, any of these characters. If it is any of these characters, it will print. So let's just provide Z. That means it should have Z in your email ID. Okay, so this is basically the second usage of your regex function. Now, if you want to find the customers which email address containing characters from X to Z. Similarly, if I have XYZ, okay, that means it will print all the customers having X, Y, or Z, right? If I want to print all the customers having any of the characters between X and Z, so you can also write XYZ, you can also write hyphen. If you want like G hyphen Z, that means any email ID having G to Z, G, H, I, J, anything in OR, okay, not in AND. So writing this will be very difficult, right? G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y. So irrespective to write such a big name, you can also mention hyphen, okay? So this is where your regular expression comes into picture, and definitely you cannot achieve these using a like command. In case of like, let's say X, Y or Z, it's such a simple query, right? In terms of like, you will have to mention like X or email like Y or email like Z. Okay, this will also give you the same output, but see the query, the length of query is very, like, it's more, right? It's a very simple query to write down. Okay, and definitely if you don't remember regular expressions in your real life scenarios, you can definitely use your like queries as well. Okay, now after regular expression comes your nested queries. So by now you know that a database is a collection of multiple related tables, right? Now, while generating insights from data, you may need to refer to these multiple tables in a query. There are two ways to deal with such type of queries. This includes the joins and the nested queries. If you are not clear with joins, go back to the first part of the introduction of SQL to data science and try to understand how joins work, because I have covered joins in my previous part as well. Okay, this part I will be talking about the nested queries and the subqueries. Okay, a subquery is called as inner query, while the query that contains the subquery is called as an outer query. A subquery can be used anywhere that expression is used and must be closed in parentheses. If you look at this particular example, select something from something where office code in, select office code from offices where country equals to USA. Okay, so that means the blue marked query is going to be my inner query and the red is my outer query. Always in a nested query, your inner query runs first based on the output of inner query, then runs your outer query. If you remember in my previous example, I will just go back to the test DB. If you remember, we used this function, right? Select min of age from emp info. Now we were also talking about, can we print the employee details who is having the minimum age? So select star from employee where age equals to minimum age. It should work, right? But no, it will not work because this is a aggregate functions. You cannot write it right like this. Okay. In order to fulfill this output, what you need to do is select star from the table where age is equals to select minimum age from enp info. That means what will be this output? This output will be 22. So what it does is first this runs, then it enters 22 here and then runs your outer query. So this is going to be your inner query and this is going to be your outer query. Now if you run this, you will get the output. So this is an example of a nested query, query within a query. Okay. So these are also called as your subqueries. As we discussed, a subquery is an inner query, while the query that contains the subquery is called as an outer query. Okay. Now, let's take this exercise and try to understand. Write a query to retrieve the name of all employees who have an age greater than what Gus Gray has. Okay, we'll try to use the new database again. Okay, select star from customer. I will try to solve this step by step. Okay, who have an age greater than what Gus Gray has? Oh, sorry, it's part of test DB. Okay, my bad. Okay, so let's try to query this emp info. So let's try to see what is the age of Gus Gray. First equals to Gus and last equals to Gray. What is the age? So the age is 35. Let's try to print age. So the query says, I want the list of the employees who is having age greater than Gus Gray's age. So I will write my new query, select star from emp info where age greater than this. Now if I run this entire table, this is my output. The age of Gus Gray was 35. All these candidates have a greater than 35, age greater than 35. If you want less than 35, it will show you less than 35. If you want to see equals to 35, it will print the details of Gus Gray. Gus Gray along with some other employees who's having age 35, right? So this is how this exercise can be done. Okay. So this is all about the nested queries. Our next topic is going to be views. Let's try to understand views because mostly when it comes to analysis, when it comes to the data science applications where we are dealing with multiple tables and let's say querying each and every table is taking a lot of time and so on, or else you don't want your users to access the tables such as let's say you are trying to do an analysis on customer details and his salary details. Okay, you don't want the users to provide an access to the salary details directly because anybody can update that table, right? In order to do that, you can also create a view. Okay, so let's try to understand what are views. Views are virtual tables that do not store any data of their own, but display data stored in other tables. Advantages is that it hides the complexity of data. It acts as aggregated tables. If you are doing an user level access control, you can give an user access to a view without giving access to the tables behind it. That's the same example which I told. Let's say you are dealing with some of the tables which contains like information which needs care, right? You don't have to share the information, or else you are scared that somebody might update the table. So you want to restrict the access. You can create a view on top of it and provide access to that table. Okay. It can allow for massive performance improvements as well. Now, the same example, if you want to create a view, very simple, on top of the entire query, just write a simple statement called as create view something as the query. So the view will be created. We'll see how the views are created. The disadvantages of views are if it is done wrongly, it can result in performance issues. So a person with a good amount of knowledge on databases is only advisable to create views, because if it is not created properly, you'll have to take care of everything, primary keys, foreign keys, and lot of things. Based on that, you'll have to create your views. If it is not created properly, it might result in a performance issues. I'm just talking about the big data, like when you are dealing with databases where you have millions of records. And one more disadvantage is that you may not be able to update the view, forcing you back to the original tables. So that is considered as a disadvantage and as an advantage as well, right? Because you will not be able to update the data. Okay, so views updation is not possible. If you want to update something, you'll have to have an access to the underlying tables. So the same exercise, write a query to retrieve the names of all the employees, the same previous exercise, but store the output in a view. So let's try to, so this was the query which we used, right? Age greater than this one. So what it is telling is, same example, store the output in a view. So what we can do is create view new EMP. Okay, as. So view is created. View acts like a table. So let's start from new EMP. Okay, only thing is that you cannot update it. Let's try to update it. Update new EMP set first equals to Ginger, where first equals to John. Oh, the target table new NP of the update is not updatable because update is not allowed. Okay, so you'll not able to update it. Now you know that new NP is a view, right? Let's try to drop it using a table command. Drop table new NP. Again, this will not work because this is not a table. This is a view. If you want to drop a view, you will have to use drop view new NP. Okay, let's drop it. Let's try to run it. It will fail, right? So this is how your views are created. So that's it for today's video. This was a very intermediate level of SQL. Later on, I'll also try to publish some very advanced topics, which includes complex queries, or you can also call it as some of the, we'll also talk about some NoSQL concepts, PostgreSQLs, and some MongoDB concepts as well in the next videos. For now, I think that should be more than enough for the SQL part. In this entire video, in today's session especially, you learned about the crux of SQL queries. These are the basic to intermediate level concepts of SQL that will be tested rigorously in your interviews. Hence, practice these points again and again to gain a deep understanding of the several SQL statements. So that's it for today's video. Leave your top three takeaways from this session in the comment section below, and try to like the video and share among your friends. And don't forget to subscribe the channel. Thank you, guys.